What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And today we are diving into something wild. Something that even shocked the Avengers themselves. We're talking about Wolverine, the man who survives anything, the man who heals from everything. But this time, things are different. Because, for the first time in his entire history, Wolverine didn't bleed. He was stabbed, shot, torn apart, and he didn't lose a single drop. No wounds stayed open, no marks were left behind. And even the Avengers had no idea why. Now here's the crazy part. Wolverine didn't understand it either. He had died before, many times, and every time he came back scarred, limping, barely hanging on. But not now. His body was calm, cold almost, like death didn't exist for him anymore. Like pain itself had quit trying to stop him. Something was happening deep inside this man, something powerful, something unnatural. And nobody was ready for what came next. So what we're going to do today is break down exactly how Wolverine became immortal, how his healing factor evolved beyond anything he or the Avengers expected, and why this event might be one of the most dangerous turning points in Marvel history. Because an immortal Wolverine is not the same hero we knew. A man who cannot die is not simply strong. He becomes something else entirely. A force with no ending. A story that stretches forever. A fire that never goes out. And trust me, the moment the Avengers saw the truth, everything changed. The mission, the team, the future. Because when death stops being a limit, the world stops looking like the same place. And Wolverine, he just kept walking forward, healing faster than time, leaving no scars behind. So let's get into it. How immortality found Wolverine, how the Avengers reacted, and how one moment turned into a mystery too big to ignore. This is where it begins. The story really starts on a day that should have gone like any other. A mission, a threat, the Avengers assembled. Wolverine on point, nothing unusual. Wolverine gets torn apart every week and walks it off like it's a morning stretch, right? But this time, something caught everyone off guard. In the middle of the fight, when metal ripped through his skin and explosions slammed him into the concrete, something strange happened. Logan stood back up, not slowly, not shaking, not half dead like normal. He got up like nothing touched him. His skin closed instantly, like water smoothing over a rock. No blood, no wound, no pain, not even a scar. The healing wasn't just fast, it was absolute. Thor paused. Hulk stopped mid-swing. Even Tony Stark's helmet scanned him twice, like it couldn't believe what it was seeing. Because Wolverine had always been tough, but he'd never been unhurt. He'd never been untouchable. He was the guy who survived getting hurt, not the guy who never felt it. But now he was walking through attacks like a ghost wearing adamantium. And that was the moment everything shifted. The Avengers thought Wolverine was just having a good day. Maybe his healing factor was running hot. Maybe adrenaline was carrying him. But deep down, they knew something was off. Wolverine wasn't slowing down, not breathing heavy, not even blinking when blades cut him. His eyes were calm, focused, almost silent. Like pain was a language he no longer spoke. But the part that shook them most? When the fight was over, they checked him. Thor expected bruises. Cap expected slashes. Tony expected tissue still knitting together. But all they found was perfect skin. Like Wolverine had never been in danger at all. And that's when the question started. Cap asked quietly, "Logan, why didn't you bleed?" Tony ran every scan he could. Bruce Banner watched like a scientist, seeing a new law of nature. And Logan? He just stared at his own hands like they were strangers. Because even he didn't know. This wasn't strength. This wasn't healing. This was something new. The story begins here, with a man built for pain suddenly becoming untouchable. And a team of heroes realizing they might not understand Wolverine anymore. His mutation was changing, and none of them were ready. Not even Wolverine. To understand why this moment mattered, why Wolverine standing without bleeding felt like the world shifting under everyone's feet, we have to go backward, not to the Avengers, not to Krakoa, not even to Weapon X, but further. Back to a time when Wolverine wasn't unkillable. Back to when every cut mattered, every scar told a story, and every drop of blood was a reminder that he was still human enough to hurt. There's a memory Wolverine never let go of, even after a century of war and pain. A moment that shaped him long before immortality ever whispered into his bones. It wasn't a battlefield or a mutant war. It was a night in the Canadian wilderness, bitter cold, claws raw, body broken, and no one coming to save him. He lay bleeding into the snow, breath fading, heart slowing, vision blurred, white like the world was going quiet. Back then, death felt real. He could feel life leaking out of him. He felt small. He felt mortal. And deep in that moment, in the frost and blood and silence, Wolverine remembers something else. He wanted to die. Just once. To rest. To stop fighting. To stop waking up in new wars with old wounds. To stop living a life built from violence and claws and regret. But he didn't die. He never did. He dragged himself up, half dead, half frozen, but alive. And that memory stayed with him like a shadow. A reminder that life always forced him forward, even when he didn't want it. Healing was a gift, but it was also a chain wrapped tight around his soul. This flashback becomes the second heartbeat of our story. Just like when Jones carried the weight of the fight long before he stepped into the boxing ring, Wolverine carries the weight of living too long. He remembers pain, blood, scars. He remembers being breakable. And that's what makes his new immortality terrifying. Because when the man who once bled like everyone else stops bleeding entirely, when the man who wanted death once upon a time becomes incapable of finding it, something deeper is happening than just evolution. Something is rewriting destiny in his bones. The Avengers don't know this part of Wolverine's past. They see the fighter. They see the claws. They see the survivor. But they never saw the night he lay in the snow wishing for an ending. And now, he may never get one. This memory thread will follow us through the story, growing heavier every time Wolverine refuses to fall. Just like Juan Jones fighting round after round, Logan's past pain becomes the mirror to his unstoppable present. The scars he once wore proudly, gone, erased, forgotten by his own flesh, but not by his mind. And that's where the real conflict begins. Not in battle, not with enemies, but inside the man himself. Wolverine became immortal, not by choice, but by force. And somewhere deep inside, the man remembers what it felt like to be able to die. And that's the part that scares him most. The first real clue to Wolverine's immortality didn't come during a fight or during a crisis, or even when the Avengers were gathered in a war room shouting theories the way heroes always do. No, it came in quiet. In a medical lab where machines hummed and screens glowed, where Tony Stark tried to make science explain what should have been impossible. Because for decades, Wolverine's healing factor worked like a miracle built on pain. He bled, he screamed, he stumbled back, then he healed. That was the cycle, predictable, brutal, reliable. But now, Stark saw something different, something unnatural. Wolverine's body wasn't healing wounds. It wasn't repairing damage. It was preventing injury altogether, like the cells refused to die, refused to open, refused to break at all. His tissue didn't regenerate, it reset. His skin didn't close, it never tore. His blood wasn't lost, it stayed perfectly where it belonged. And that was the first time anyone on the team said the word out loud. Not healing, not mutation, but immortality. That one word hung in the air like a heavy truth, long and sharp and cold. Because immortality wasn't strength, it was something else. Something final, something dangerous. Even Banner, who understood biology better than almost anyone alive, stared at the numbers like they were written in a language older than science. Wolverine's cells didn't behave like living tissue. They behaved like endless tissue, infinite, self-sustaining, eternal. His DNA wasn't just recovering, it was evolving, changing, upgrading, becoming something beyond mutation. Banner said something soft, almost afraid to admit it. This isn't a healing factor anymore. This is permanent life. And Wolverine, the man who had bled in every war since the 1800s, just looked down at his own hand again, like he was holding something he didn't recognize. Like the claws that once defined him now meant something far heavier. Because immortality meant no rest. No scars. No finish line. Just forever. This discovery didn't answer questions. It created more. If Wolverine couldn't die, then something changed him. Something touched his biology. Something rewrote evolution inside him. Was it natural mutation? A cosmic influence? A man-made experiment that finally took full control? Nobody knew. Not yet. But the first clue was here. His blood no longer spilled. His skin no longer tore. His body no longer accepted damage as possible. Wolverine was no longer surviving the fight. He was beyond dying. And with that realization, one truth slowly formed like thunder before storm. Something or someone made Wolverine this way. And the Avengers were about to find out how deep that mystery truly ran. Because immortality is not given by accident. It is engineered, chosen, built. The first clue was only the beginning. Once the word immortal landed on the table, the room changed. Not physically, but in energy, in silence, in the unspoken fear that even superheroes don't usually talk about. Because the Avengers were warriors, leaders, gods, but they were still human enough to understand what forever meant. Forever wasn't strength. Forever was loss stretched into eternity. Tony Stark looked at Wolverine not like a teammate, but like a riddle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. Captain America, who had fought beside Logan in wars no history book would ever mention, stared with something close to sadness. Thor, son of Odin, a god with centuries behind him, nodded with respect, but also with worry. Even gods feared eternity when it came without choice. Banner was the one who broke the silence first, voice low, steady, scientific, but shaken. He said that Wolverine's DNA showed no decay, no fatigue, no metabolic drop. He said Wolverine's body was acting like life could never leave it, like death simply didn't apply anymore. Wanda called it unnatural. Thor called it a burden disguised as glory. Cap whispered, "A soldier isn't meant to march forever." And Tony, trying to hide his fear with humor, muttered, "Congratulations, Logan. You're officially too stubborn to die." They tried to make jokes. They tried to lighten the weight. But even laughter sounded thin, because deep down, they all understood the truth. Wolverine would not retire. Wolverine would not age out. Wolverine would not fall in battle. Wolverine would keep fighting until the end of time. And none of them knew if that was a blessing or the beginning of something tragic. What made it heavier was Wolverine himself. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He stared at the floor, quiet, distant, like immortality felt less like evolution and more like chains tightening around his soul. Logan always healed, yes, but pain taught him who he was. Every scar told story. Every wound reminded him he was alive. But now, there were no scars, no stories, just endless flesh, resetting perfectly every time. Tony ran new scans. Banner reviewed cell data endlessly. Strange reached for mystical readings. Thor respected the transformation, but feared the consequence. Even Black Widow watched him differently, not as a man, but as something moving beyond mankind. They weren't afraid of Wolverine. They were afraid for him. Because immortality means watching everyone you love disappear while you remain. It means outliving friendships, wars, even worlds. It means waking up every day knowing the fight will never end. In that moment, Wolverine felt something he rarely allowed himself to feel. He felt alone. And the Avengers, for the first time, realized they couldn't protect him from the future. Not from endless years, not from endless battles, not from eternity itself. This wasn't just power growth. This was a shift in destiny. And they knew something caused this. Something triggered immortality. Something unknown lit a fire inside his DNA. The team needed answers. Logan needed truth. The world needed to prepare. Because a Wolverine who cannot die is a story still being written with no final page. And this was only the beginning. With the Avengers searching for answers in labs and data, Wolverine was searching somewhere else, inside his own mind. Immortality didn't begin the day he stopped bleeding. It started long before anyone noticed. buried in memories he never spoke about, in moments no file or scan could detect. Because while technology measured skin and cells and bone, only Logan remembered what it felt like to die and still wake up again. Most heroes remember victories. Wolverine remembers endings that never stayed ended. He remembers standing on battlefields in 1914, lungs full of smoke, bullets tearing through muscle. He remembers 1945, the flash of atomic fire on his skin, bones burning, heart stopping, and still he rose. He remembers Vietnam, cold mud, sharp metal, screams. Every time death reached for him, he slipped from its hand like mist. But he always returned damaged, scarred, limping, crawling out of death's shadow one painful inch at a time. But recently, something inside him had changed. Logan remembered a fight years ago, long before the Avengers saw Immortality rise in real time. A battle where he should have stayed dead. His heart stopped, his lungs filled with blood. His vision turned black and sound fell silent. He drifted into a darkness he had felt only twice before, a darkness that felt final. But then something pulled him back. Not healing, not mutation, something else, something new. No struggle, no pain, no rebuilding. He just opened his eyes, breathing, whole alive. He woke with no scars, no bruises, no memory of healing, just perfection. As if his body rewound instead of repaired, as if death had been erased instead of overcome. And that moment, that miracle, terrified him. Because Wolverine had lived a long life, too long, and he knew the difference between healing and resurrection. One hurt like hell. The other felt like cheating fate. This wasn't recovery, it was rejection. His body refused to let death exist. That memory haunted him more than any war. Back then, he assumed it was luck, a fluke, a miracle he didn't want to question. But now, with the Avengers seeing the truth, he couldn't ignore it anymore. Immortality didn't arrive in one day. It had been simmering inside him for years, maybe decades, growing stronger every time he came back from something that should have ended him for good. And deep within, he felt a fear greater than any enemy he'd ever faced. If he could not die, if time could never take him, if pain could never stop him, what would he become? A protector forever? A warrior without rest? A ghost watching centuries fall? Or something darker? Something unstoppable with nothing left to lose? The flashback thread, this memory of almost dying but not staying dead, becomes our key parallel. Just like when Jones fought a battle no one believed he could win, Wolverine fights eternity itself. Not an opponent of flesh, but of time. The enemy isn't Sabretooth or Magneto or any villain with claws or metal or poison. The enemy is forever. This is where Logan realizes immortality isn't power. It's a cage. And now the Avengers know something is wrong. And Wolverine knows something is coming. Something that changed his body so quietly, so slowly, it almost hid forever. But immortality always leaves a shadow. And Wolverine is finally starting to see it. Up to this point, everyone was focused on Wolverine, his body, his mutation, his past. But no evolution happens without a spark. No change this drastic arrives without a reason. And somewhere far from the Avengers Tower and far from Wolverine's memories, there was someone watching. Someone who had been waiting for this outcome for a very long time. Because immortality is not natural. Not even for mutants. Not even for Wolverine. It requires intention, design direction. And that leads us to the villain thread. Years ago, deep inside hidden laboratories where files were buried under layers of silence and government dust, Wolverine's DNA was studied, copied, tortured, rewritten. Weapon X wanted a soldier who couldn't die, a perfect weapon with no expiration date. They failed. They pushed his healing to the edge, but he still bled. He still hurt. He still needed time to recover. But someone else succeeded. Someone not bound by politics or ethics or human fear. Someone patient. Someone brilliant. Someone who looked at Wolverine and didn't just see claws. They saw eternity in a cage of adamantium. This unnamed architect, this shadow in the story, upgraded Wolverine from survivor to immortal. but not to save him, not to make him powerful, not for mercy or evolution or mutant pride. They made him immortal for a purpose no one knew yet, a purpose Wolverine hadn't discovered, a purpose the Avengers could only imagine with dread. Because a man who cannot die can be used forever, a weapon with no expiration date, a soldier built to fight until time itself breaks apart. And this villain, whoever they were, was not finished. They had files, they had data, they had experiments. They didn't just study Wolverine, they modified him, quietly, slowly, perfectly, for years. While wars came and went, while Logan fought beside heroes and against monsters, while he thought his healing was nature, someone was guiding his biology, pushing it further each time he returned from death. Wolverine believed his survival was instinct, but to this unseen enemy, every resurrection was a test, a milestone, a success. Immortality wasn't an accident, it was a project, and Wolverine was the product. The timetable wasn't revealed, the plan wasn't clear, but the outcome was undeniable. Wolverine could now fight forever, and the villain behind it? They were waiting for the day he realized it. They were waiting for the day eternity began. Because immortality was never the end, it was the starting line. The Avengers think they must solve Logan's condition. Wolverine thinks he needs answers. But the truth is darker. Someone already has them, and they are waiting to use him. This villain thread is the new shadow of the story. Not loud, not dramatic, just patient, like time itself. And Wolverine's immortality is their masterpiece. Once suspicion grew and the mystery behind Wolverine's immortality deepened, the Avengers did what they always do. They prepared for danger. They didn't say it out loud, but the tension was there in every glance, every hushed conversation. Every scan Tony ran twice instead of once. Because once you realize a man can't die, you start to ask the next question: what happens if nothing can stop him? And that's when the conflict began to rise. Wolverine started to push himself harder than ever before, maybe because he needed answers, maybe because he was afraid of what he was becoming. He faced threats alone, sentinels, mutants out of control, alien soldiers, and every time he came back without a scratch. Not weaker, not tired, not scarred. He walked through fire like it was mist. He took explosions like wind. He stood against armies like a wall that simply refused to fall. And the world noticed. Some saw hope, a protector who would never die. Others saw fear, a weapon that could never be stopped. Governments whispered. Villains paid attention. Old enemies resurfaced, curious or terrified or both. Because for the first time in his long life, Wolverine wasn't just durable, he was untouchable. The Avengers tried to keep up, but Logan was moving faster than answers. He patrolled alone, fought alone, took risks no mortal should take because he wasn't mortal anymore. Every battle felt like proof that immortality was real and absolute. But every victory brought a new tension, a new weight, a new edge in his voice. He didn't grunt in pain anymore. He didn't shout in anger. He just fought, silent, relentless, unstoppable. And that scared even him, because the pain he used to feel grounded him. Pain told him who he was, a man made of broken parts who kept fighting anyway. But without pain, without scars, without limits, he started drifting from the Wolverine he used to be. He didn't know where the line was anymore, the line between healing and invincibility, between Logan and something beyond human. The Avengers began to see it too. Thor wondered if eternal warriors lose their heart over time. Cap wondered if immortality erases empathy. Banner feared what Wolverine might become if emotion faded as scars did. Tony calculated outcomes, none of them comforting. Even Logan himself started hesitating in quiet moments, staring at his reflection, waiting for a cut that would never come, listening for a heartbeat that might never slow. The man who feared dying now feared never being able to. Because when you can't fall, you stop learning how to stand back up. And Wolverine was standing too easily. The world around him changed while he remained the same, a constant, eternal blade in a universe built on endings. And with every battle he walked through untouched, the truth grew louder. Immortality wasn't stability. It was escalation, a rising wave of conflict that couldn't be contained. Wolverine wasn't breaking, the world was. And somewhere in the shadows, the one who made him immortal was waiting for the moment when Logan finally understood what forever really meant. The real war wasn't the fights he walked through. The real war was coming. The longer Wolverine walked through battle untouched, the more the Avengers realized they weren't dealing with a mutation anymore. They were dealing with an evolution they didn't understand. Healing Factor was supposed to save him from death, but now it was preventing death itself, locking him inside a body that refused to fall, refused to age, refused to break. Every punch he took was like testing a wall for cracks and finding none. Now, the question shifted. Not how is Wolverine healing, but why can't Wolverine die anymore? And that question pushed the team into a level of research and fear they hadn't faced before. Tony Stark, who always trusted numbers, found nothing but impossibilities. Bruce Banner, who trusted biology, found rules being rewritten. Even Doctor Strange, who understood death from a mystical perspective, sensed something unnatural, like fate was being bent, not followed. Wolverine's DNA was no longer healing him. It was protecting him from reality itself. Cells weren't repairing. They were refusing to be damaged. Blood wasn't clotted. It never left the veins. Nerves didn't signal pain because pain required injury, and injury no longer existed. It was eternal regeneration frozen at perfection, and that terrified everyone. The more studies they ran, the more horrifying the truth became. Wolverine cells weren't just rebuilding. They were duplicating perfectly, endlessly, like a loop without exit. No aging, no decay, no breakdown, no weakness. Banner whispered what no one else dared to say. There is no maximum. His healing doesn't burn out. It doesn't exhaust. There is no limit anymore. A healing factor with limits is biology. A healing factor without limits is infinity. Tony calculated theoretical projections. Logan might live 300 years, 500, 1,000, maybe more. Time would decay around him. Civilizations would rise and fall, but his cells would remain. His mind might fracture, memories might fade, but his body would not break. That was the discovery that cracked the room. They weren't studying survival. They were studying permanence. Wolverine wasn't just alive. He was fixed in existence. He couldn't be erased. He couldn't be undone. He couldn't finish. The realization hit Logan hardest. He always fought with claws and rage and heart. He learned from loss. He grew from scars. He lived through endings. But now he faced the one enemy no blade could cut, no explosion could break, no power could stop. Eternity. He wouldn't just see friends die. He would see every friend die. He wouldn't just outlive wars. He would outlive generations. He wouldn't just survive battles. He would survive the world itself. Immortality wasn't a power anymore. It was a timeline with no finish line. A book with endless chapters and no final page. And with that truth, a new fear filled the air. If Wolverine cannot die, what happens when the world stops being something worth living for? What happens when immortality becomes isolation? When memories outweigh moments? When eternity stops being a gift and becomes punishment? The truth wasn't just discovered, it was understood. And now the Avengers stood not beside a teammate, but beside something that would remain long after they were gone. The world could end. Nations could fall. But Wolverine would still be there, alive, unbroken, endless. And everyone felt it in their bones. The future no longer frightened him because of danger. It frightened him because he could never escape it. And the villain who engineered this? They didn't give Wolverine forever to save the world. They gave him forever, so they could use him when the future arrived. And that future was coming, fast. Every revelation so far was frightening. Wolverine healing without bleeding. Immortality unfolding inside him like endless clockwork. The Avengers discovering that his body no longer accepted the concept of damage. But nothing prepared them for the truth they were about to uncover. Because immortality was not growth. It wasn't evolution. It wasn't destiny. It was manufactured, engineered, designed, and the one behind it had not disappeared into memory like old experiments usually do. They had been waiting in silence, watching Wolverine live, die, recover, repeat. Every resurrection was progress. Every survival was success. Every war was another data point. Wolverine thought he was surviving by instinct, but he was being measured, logged, improved. Immortality was not a glitch in his mutation. It was the final stage of a plan decades in the making. Old files hidden in government vaults, sealed by Weapon X, erased by time, protected by people who feared what they'd made, finally resurfaced. Not because the Avengers found them, but because someone sent them. Someone wanted the truth revealed at the exact moment Logan became unstoppable. Someone who needed him to know the purpose behind his eternity. The files were simple, cold, clinical. Subject X, target immortality, achieved. Cellular decay rate, 0. Termination threshold, none. Objective, eternal soldier. That was the twist. Wolverine didn't become immortal because nature chose him. He became immortal because someone else needed him to exist forever. A war was coming, not tomorrow, not next decade, but one day. A war big enough that normal heroes would die. A war where time itself would fall apart. And they wanted one thing to remain standing, Wolverine. Not alive by choice, alive by requirement. His healing was no longer survival, it was maintenance. His immortality was not freedom, it was function. He wasn't evolving, he was being preserved. Wolverine was a weapon built for a future that hadn't happened yet. The realization shattered him. All the wars he survived, not miracles, but milestones. All the deaths he returned from, progress markers, not luck. All the pain, healing, scars, stepping stones toward eternity. Immortality wasn't given. It was installed. Not for him, but for whoever controlled the future waiting to use him. Wolverine had always feared losing himself. He never imagined he had been someone else's project all along. And with that twist, that brutal truth, everything changed. He was not unkillable by nature. He was unkillable by design. Not a free man, not a lucky survivor, not a miracle of evolution, but a soldier who could never fall, because he was never allowed to. Immortality wasn't the final gift. It was the final command. Logan had been prepared for a war the world hadn't seen yet. A war built on time, death, and endless survival. And now the question rises like thunder before the final storm. If Wolverine was made to live forever, what was he built to fight? After the reveal, after the files, after the understanding that immortality was not a blessing, but a mission someone else wrote into his bones. Wolverine did what few heroes ever do. He stopped fighting the world, and he started fighting the meaning of his own existence. Because strength is simple, pain is familiar, healing is instinct. But purpose? Purpose cuts deeper than adamantium. Wolverine was never afraid of death. He was afraid of living without reason, of breathing forever with no destination, of surviving out of habit instead of hope. And now he knew someone had chosen eternity for him. Someone wanted him alive beyond history, beyond monuments, beyond every teammate who would ever stand at his side. They didn't just make him immortal. They made him responsible for the future. Not today's battles, not tomorrow's threats, but a war he alone might see, because everyone else will be gone. And that thought changed everything. The Avengers saw it too, not in scans or DNA models, but in Logan's eyes when he looked at them. Eyes that understood something they didn't. He would hold every memory, every loss, every victory, every funeral, forever. Thor may fall, Steve may age, Tony may burn out in brilliance, Strange may vanish into mystic eternity, but Wolverine would remain, the last witness to a world that will move on without him. Immortality wasn't triumph. It was weight, a mountain on his soul, a promise he never made, but must now carry. And yet, in that shadow, in that endless future, there was something remarkable. Wolverine didn't break. He didn't rage. He didn't collapse under eternity. He accepted it. Because Logan has never fought to win. Not truly. He fights because fighting means living. Because claws are not symbols of death. They are proof that even the broken keep moving forward. He is immortal, not to conquer, but to continue. To be the last light in the darkest timeline. To be hope when hope becomes history. To stand when everything else falls. And that is Wolverine's philosophy. Simple, brutal, beautiful. Some heroes fight to live. But Wolverine, he lives to fight. Because the fight is the point. As long as evil rises. As long as worlds break. As long as time refuses mercy. Wolverine will be there. Not because he wants forever, but because he cannot stop fighting for it. Immortality isn't power. It's responsibility. It's memory that never fades. It's a war that never ends. And Wolverine, more than any hero, was born to carry it. Not perfect, not blessed, but eternal. The story doesn't close for him. The final page will never turn. Wolverine walks the endless road. Claws ready, heart heavy, soul unbroken, forever. And so that's where we leave it, for now. Wolverine stands at the edge of forever, carrying a burden no one else can. The weight of eternity in a world built on endings. He doesn't bleed. He doesn't break. He doesn't fall. His story is no longer measured in battles or scars, but in centuries and memory that will stretch long after every other hero becomes history. But the real question isn't how Wolverine became immortal. It's why. Who wanted him to outlive everyone? Who needed a soldier who could never die? And what war is coming that requires a weapon built for eternity? Because if someone engineered Logan's immortality, then they're not finished. They're waiting, preparing, planning. Maybe it's Weapon X, resurrected in secret. Maybe it's Mr. Sinister, obsessed with perfect biology. Maybe it's Apocalypse, shaping evolution for war. Or maybe, and this is the terrifying possibility, it was never a villain. Maybe the future itself chose Wolverine. A timeline so dark, so violent, so absolute, that only an immortal could stand against it. So the next chapter isn't about Wolverine surviving. We already know he can do that. The next chapter is about him enduring, watching worlds change, watching heroes fall, learning what it means to fight when there is no finish line. Because immortality is not the end of Wolverine's story. It's the beginning of a war only he may live long enough to see. And when that day comes, when the future finally reveals why he cannot die, will he still be a hero? Or will eternity shape him into something the world should fear? That, my friends, is where the Real story begins. If you enjoyed this breakdown, feel free to drop a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and tell me if you want the next chapter. What if Wolverine faces the war he was built for? Thank you for watching. Stay strong, stay curious, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.